Hello everybody, Eternal Flame here, and today I wanted to discuss an interesting topic. As we all know, Conquest invaded the Earth after the Invincible War, where basically everyone else was kinda screwed and the only hope to actually fight against Conquest was Invincible, Adam, Eve, and Oliver. But with how much we have seen the Earth be able to defend itself surprisingly pretty well considering how many things are capable of hurting Mark, how many things on the planet have weaknesses of Viltrumites, etc., I decided to ask myself a question. If all of the forces that we ever know about from Earth were to unite with each other, would they stand a chance against the Viltrumites, or would they lose to Conquest? Basically, could the Earth defend against Conquest on their own? Like, if every villain and every hero united at their peaks, would they be able to do this? Well, that's what I hope to discuss today. Basically, any strategies they might be able to use to pull off to beat Conquest, or if they're just doomed. However, with this video, I am going to have some caveats. Number one, and this is a pretty huge one, Mark and Oliver will not be here. Now, the reason why exactly doesn't really matter, but basically they are not going to have any Viltrumites with them. Adam Eve, however, will still be here. Number two, and this is the more important one, while I am giving them their full arsenals, they're not really going to have time to basically combine their powers if it would take a lot of time. For example, the Muller twins won't be able to clone themselves and pass that clone off to DA St. Clair to make a Muller twin Reaniman with enhanced physical strength. Third and final caveat, we're not going to give them the Invincible variant Reaniman, mainly because I feel like that would make things way too easy. And while there are definitely going to be a lot of characters involved in this, because there's going to be so many characters, not everybody is going to have the same level of usefulness or contribution. So some characters I'm just going to skip through because I don't really see them being of much help in this actual battle. But first, let's go over Conquest first. Conquest is by far one of, if not the strongest character in Invincible's TV show right now. The only characters in contention being Battle Beast and Alan the Alien, since we get pretty hard confirmation that Conquest is just outright stronger than Omniman, who Omniman was already dominating the strongest superhero team on the planet, that being the previous Guardians of the Globe. With Cecil outright saying that they think Conquest would have beaten Omniman, and his literal OST being the second strongest Viltrumite, behind of course a certain other person who hasn't been revealed yet, because spoilers, Omniman is not the strongest. Now I should know this, I'm primarily going to be going off the TV show scaling and not comic book scaling, mainly because a bunch of characters do actually scale better in the TV show, and it just is outright a different scale, so yeah. However, it should also be noted Conquest does have some weaknesses. His robotic arm, for example, is weaker than the rest of his body. Now, it should be noted, it took a heavily enraged and basically feral Invincible to actually break through that arm, and it still ended up breaking Mark's own arm to do that, so it's not going to be an easy task to break it, but it is still there. Keep in mind as well, Season 3 Invincible is the strongest hero on Earth. His head is also arguably a bit weaker than the rest of his body as well due to his scarring, and that being the main place Invincible went for to put him down. But yeah, I think everybody knows by this point that basically all of the strongest heroes are not going to stand a chance against Conquest in a physical brawl. No one there is as strong as him, no one there is as strong as Season 3 Invincible, and by extension, Conquest is just dominating Season 3 Invincible. So with that in mind, is there any way that they can stand a chance? Can the power of numbers override them, and are there any strategies they can pull off? Now first, I do want to go over a couple of their big advantages that might go under the radar for some people. Which one of the big advantages they're going to have is having Machine Head on their side with the Future Sight chip. Machine Head's chip was so good at probability, it was able to predict several things into the future, including Invincible and Titan even fighting him hours before it even happened. Which having that alongside a tactician like Cecil and Robot on your side all guiding you is going to be rather helpful. Furthermore, they are also going to have 3 methods of teleportation, that being Darkwing, Isotope, and Cecil's teleporter. So now that we got basically the strategists out the way, I'm going to run down the other characters and group them into what I see them being their roles in this actual battle. Up first is going to be the heavy hitters. These are going to be the people who are physically challenging against Conquest. Now, of course, Conquest is going to be stronger than all of them, like I mentioned before, but they're at least going to stand some level of chance and be able to hold them off for long enough and be able to be used as setup for a bunch of the other characters. Those people being the Hail Mary, Mr. Liu, all of the Reaniman that DA St. Clair is going to have access to, which is going to be over hundreds, considering we're giving him all of the numbers, the Immortal, several of Doc Seismic centipedes from the Earth that were able to do some damage against Invincible, Tech Jacket, and finally War Woman. The reasons that I picked these ones are quite simple. Hail Mary is kind of self-explanatory. They were able to take on Omni-Man for a little bit and almost kill him. Mr. Liu in his dragon form is immortal and was able to fight against Season 3 Invincible and bloody him and do some damage to him. After all, 3 to 6 of them jumping Invincible variants was enough to kill them. Now of course Mark was able to destroy a large amount of them pretty easily, and Conquest should be able to do the exact same, but it's going to be their numbers that offer some really big support as well as openings. War Woman and the Immortal were both able to do some physical damage against Omni-Man. And finally the Centipedes were able to do pretty well against Season 3 Invincible. Furthermore, if these Centipedes are able to land their bite on Conquest at all, it's going to poison him a little bit and allow everybody to have some openings. And of course, finally, Tech Jacket was able to put down an Invincible variant completely solo. But while these guys are the heavy hitters, none of these guys are really going to be the main people who are going to put Conquest down directly. Now up next, to add even more support, I'm going to have the support characters. Basically, these guys aren't strong enough to really be considered heavy hitters, but they are at least strong enough to be support on the battlefield for the heavy hitters. Those characters are, of course, Monster Girl, Robot, most of the Guardians of the Globe members other than Green Ghost and Red Rush, who I'm going to talk about later in their own section, the Magma Mites, all of the goons that Machine Head hired other than Battle Beast, mainly because I'm not including Battle Beast. I don't think it'd be fair to include him. Which does remind me, if you want to see a good video on Conquest versus Battle Beast, go check out Ty Learn's channel. He made a good one on it, so yeah, you'll like it. Bulletproof is also going to be part of this, because while he is somewhat strong, I don't think he is strong enough to do any damage to Conquest or be considered a heavy hitter. Most of the heroes that were fighting in the Invincible War, such as Brit, and finally Kill Cannon, because he might offer a good distraction. Now up next I have the healer role. Now granted, no one on this team has actual healing powers, but these are more so just people who are going to be lifesavers for a lot of the people on the team. Now this role is a lot easier to fill, mainly because there's only 3 characters who fill out this role, which those 3 characters are Red Rush, Green Ghost, and Isotope. Technically 4 if we factor in Cecil's teleportation, and Machine Head basically warning Cecil that somebody's about to die. Green Ghost can phase people through walls. Red Rush is shown that Omniman actually has to go out of his way to predict him in order to catch him rather than just outspeeding him, so Conquest might be in a similar boat. So if Red Rush stays on life support instead, that's going to be rather good for the entire team because it'll allow a lot more people to be saved. Furthermore, they're also all going to be aware of Conquest coming, which will give them some time to know Red Rush should not attack. And finally, there's going to be Isotope, who's just going to be teleporting everybody away if they're getting too injured or too damaged. So now I'm going to talk about support to win cons. Now these aren't exactly going to be full-on win cons, but rather support to getting these win conditions. Now in this section we have a couple things to talk about. Up first, we're going to have the frequency that both Cecil as well as the Kaiju from the ocean is going to have access to, which is able to weaken Viltrumites based on their hearing. And considering it for a long enough period of time was able to make Mark basically be forced to be on the ground, that might actually allow for some openings which might be useful for our win cons. Furthermore, for the Mauler twins, we're going to have access to their stun gun. However, because of the circumstance, we're only having 1 stun gun, so yeah. Now, Invincible himself was able to resist 1 shot from the stun gun, but he wasn't able to resist it completely, which basically implies that if they were to land enough shots with the stun gun, it might even be able to take out someone like Conquest, because I don't think Conquest has full immunity to it. And the final support condition that I have in mind is of course going to be what I talked about earlier when I was in the heavy hitters section, about the centipedes from the center of the earth that were able to poison Mark, which should also be able to poison Conquest. Now these aren't full-on win conditions, but things that make the other win conditions that I have in mind to be much easier. Which now we are going to move on to the win condition characters, which up first, the first win condition character that I have in mind is going to be Adam Eve. Without what Adam Eve did against Conquest in that fight, Mark would not have been able to win against Conquest in that battle. Now normally I put Adam Eve under heavy hitters, but I feel she fits more in the win condition side, which is why I didn't mention her until now. Now of course Adam Eve on her own is most certainly not a win condition, but if we pair her up with the stun gun and especially the sound weapons and have Adam Eve just be put on near death at the same time, then yeah. Basically, if we get Conquest to put them in a similar position to how they took out Adam Eve originally, and then the second that Adam Eve is about to revive herself, since Machine Head can see into the future, he teleports over the sound gun or the stun gun or both of them, and bam, they're going to weaken Conquest and make it perfect for Adam Eve to land that blow. Now, of course, I'm not 100% certain this could kill him, but if Conquest is being down and battled enough, especially considering how many strong people they have, this will do numbers against him. And if we assume Hail Mary and Mr. Liu aren't dead by this point, especially Mr. Liu, since, well, Conquest isn't going to have any information, and if he's going to try and go for the real body, Isotope can just always teleport it away, then yeah, they can be able to finish them off, considering they should be around the same level as Season 3 Invincible, especially the Hail Mary. So effectively, if Adam Eve doesn't succeed in finishing them off with that move, we're going to have Hail Mary, Reanimin, as well as Mr. Liu, and the Immortal, and a bunch of other characters just jump Conquest at once to the finishing blow. Now, out of all the win cons and win conditions, I genuinely think this is by far the most likely one to work, considering we already see how effective Adam Eve can be, and Mark just needs to finish them off. So if we add in a bunch of other characters after this, then yeah, they have a pretty good chance. Though of course this would be extremely difficult for all of them to pull off, but this is the most likely one to have the least casualties in my opinion. Now up next for another win condition character, I have the second Darkwing. And basically my plan is to have him do exactly what he did in the Invincible War, which is pushing Conquest into a shadow and keeping him there, sacrificing his own life in the process. And with some extra force pushing into the shadows, such as a bunch of Reanimin or the Hail Mary just stomping down on them, maybe that will end up working and keeping Conquest in the shadows. After all, if Darkwing dies, which Darkwing is more than likely going to die, he is going to end up leaving Conquest there with him. However, this requires a full self-sacrifice play. Especially if we use the stun gun as well as the sound weapon in order to catch him a little bit off guard, and we use all that combined with Darkwing, and bam. Now, this is one of the win conditions I'm a little bit more certain about. However, it is going to have at least one guaranteed casualty, which is kind of the bad thing about it. But considering it's either one guaranteed casualty or someone taking over the entire Earth, yeah, this is kind of our best option. And those are the main two win conditions that I see us having. But up next, I'm going to move on to the bit uncertain win conditions. These win conditions can exist, but they're a little bit unprovable, so I kind of have to add them in here, in comparison to the other two, which I'm pretty certain would work. Our next win condition is a pretty similar one to the Darkwing one, but it's a lot harder to prove it will be possible, which is a pretty simple isotope teleport him to the sun, or isotope teleport him to a new planet. Now, of course, it's a lot more just isotope teleport him to the sun, and it would definitely require a self-sacrifice play from Isotope, but at the same time, if it is possible for Isotope to do this, then this would be a pretty good way to beat Conquest, but also, it's not really certain whether Isotope can teleport that far. There's no proof of it, which is why I'm putting it here in uncertain win conditions, because I'm not certain if we can actually have him do this. Both the Darkwing Portal thing as well as Amber do have feats to show this would be possible as a win condition for them. Now, up next is going to be a character that I didn't mention at all, but I definitely should have mentioned in the heavy hitters section, but I'm going to mention him here. That is, of course, Powerplex. Now, under normal circumstances, I would put him in the heavy hitters section, considering how well he does against Marco, since he's actually able to hurt him a bit, even before he actually took any damage from them, and he's able to take out an Invincible variant, and fight against Mohawk Mark. But the real big thing with Powerplex is we have no idea how much electricity he can store. For all we know, he could constantly continue to increase strength further and further, so long as he doesn't end up releasing all of that energy. Now, this is a no limits fallacy, which is why I included it in this part, because we don't really know what his power limit is, but if we assume it doesn't have a power limit, then he definitely will be an important part. He might even with enough damage, and if it's measured well enough, be able to even put down Conquest with enough hits. Now, it's definitely going to hurt him. Now, with Powerplex, we are going through a lot of might, and I do actually think that Powerplex has a limit, which is why I'm not going to say this would 100% work, but it is a possibility I wanted to bring up either way. So in total, I believe they have 4 or 5 win cons, with of course the 4 win cons that I mentioned beforehand, as well as what I consider the least likely win con, which is just stacking enough damage over time to eventually put him down and just lose a lot of people, but I think that is just the least likely one to happen. However, all these win cons are nice and all. The Earth definitely has a chance and a way they can beat Conquest, but the real important question is, will they beat Conquest? What is their actual chance they will beat Conquest with these strategies in mind? If I'm going to be honest with you people, it's honestly not that high. Because while they do have win conditions, there's going to be one small difference in between how Mark fought against them and how Conquest is going to fight against everybody else on the planet. Because while Conquest is certainly going to give himself some openings to let them land attacks, as soon as he sees who's the strongest people there, he's kind of just going to go out of his way to eliminate all of the weak people there, which is going to make things significantly harder for everybody else. Furthermore, for a lot of these plans to work, we kind of need a lot of things to go our way. The sound device we're only going to have one shot with, because the second that Conquest is aware of it, he is going to go serious and take that out. They are definitely only going to get one shot with the stun gun, and the Darkwing strategy is only going to work once, and it kind of is a bet it all on something to work. Like, it's not that likely to work, mainly because of how much risk there is. It is the most likely plan to work in my opinion, but just because it's the most likely doesn't mean it is likely to work. And that's kind of the main thing about these things. All of these plans I think would work, but they are one-hit wonders. Though maybe I'm downplaying the Earth a bit, who knows? I kind of want to see what you guys think in the comment section down below. But to answer what my question was for this video, I do think the Earth can beat Conquest. I just think it's very, very unlikely for them to be able to beat him. However, maybe I'm wrong. I want to see what you guys think. Anyways, have a good day. Peace out.